We're so glad to have you here, Martin. So nice to meet you. Um,
Eh,
yeah,
My pleasure being here. I'm really looking forward to it. Thanks.
and we will talk a lot about education and, of course, Moodle and some AI. But I think we'll start with going back 20 years. You spent most of your life building this open learning platform used by millions of people. And looking back, what was it that you wanted to change in the world when you started creating Moodle?
Didn't quite start out wanting to change the world. I was helping people around me, but I quickly realized that this was a much bigger thing. And it was simply to allow the power of the internet to start helping education, because I was always been a very strong believer in the power of education to change the world. I feel like anything you can think of that you want to change or anything you want to see happen in the world, there is education involved. And so the way we do that and the technologies that can help us and using the power of the internet and communication is obviously a really big part of that. And when I started with Moodle, at that time the internet was so new that all this power wasn't being used. People couldn't use it very easily. It was too techy, it was too hard to build an environment, and I thought I could do a better way. And so I was thinking very generically, very for all people and all levels of education, and just really trying to go to the philosophy of learning and what happens in the brain, and wasn't thinking too much about markets or business or those sorts of things. It was like, how can people learn together? So that's what I was thinking.
So in hindsight, is there anything you would have changed? Like if you could go back 20 years and whisper something in your ear, like knowledges you have accumulated now.
Wow, that's an interesting one. I mean, if I was starting now, I'd be using AI at the core of it. But yeah, assuming the technology is the same back then, I think I couldn't have done anything much different. I didn't. I like a lot of the choices I made. For example, about how to build a business around that, how to and making things open source. I would do that again, and definitely would always do that again. And all those things I think would have been the same. It was very much a product of that time and what things were like then. But even then, I was very much aware that large companies are not good things to build infrastructure for the internet in the long term.
What has surprised you the most then over the years?
Well, I had to learn a lot of business along the way. I started out just doing science and doing computers and making software and solving problems, and I love solving problems. What surprised me is as I got into business, I had to learn so much about interacting with a lot of people and running an organization and running like the Moodle headquarters is around 300 people. But if you look at all the partner companies that we have, that's about 2,000 people. And then if you look at all the people who are engaging on Moodle.org, that's around 10,000 people. And then you look at all the users, there's millions and millions of people. And there's like a lot of people. And I guess I was just really surprised by my own learning and my own capacities or my own weaknesses in that area, how to interact with so many people. And yeah, so that's been really interesting. But I love doing it. I love communities. I love people. I love the potential of humanity to rise up and be better all the time.
I mean, it must be somewhat complicated to when you have a community as large as Moodle with all the different organizations and cultures and to some extent willpowers to try to unify everyone towards a common goal. Is that something
Yeah.
you have been intentful about how to do, or something that has more sort of developed as you go along creating Moodle?
No, I'm very aware of the cultural differences. In my own life, I have a Greek father and a German mother. Now, these are both European. They're not that different, actually, compared to other countries. But I was always aware of the differences, and I'm growing up in Australia, and living with Aboriginal communities, and there are some big differences. And so I've always been very aware of that. And the whole design of Moodle is trying to separate what are the things that are common to us all, what are the basic processes of learning that work, and building feedback loops, and trying to encourage conversation at all levels and feedback. Those things are common, but being open source as a tool, it allows people to customize Moodle for their own culture, for their own needs. So yes, language, of course, and curriculum, they're obvious, but there are people who have very different impressions about how education should run, just the processes of it. And so they're able to build plugins in Moodle and customize it to those needs. I would never assume that I, as a white male with a European background in Australia, would understand all of how education should be in Africa or in Asia or in South America. Even the US, like I was super surprised that the US routinely gives people grades above 100%. I was like, and that's normal, very normal for them. And so I just, we had to I had assumptions that I baked into Moodle that something could be 100%. Apparently it can be 115%. And so we had to redo the grade book to make it flexible for all these kind of scenarios. So yeah, there's been a lot of that. But I think we've got a pretty good balance even today of what is common and what is custom or local or cultural.
Yeah, I think that for us was one of the main things we noticed during the first Moodle Moot that we attended, and hearing people from other countries talking about how they wanted to see Moodle develop and what requirements they were hearing from their customers, which were in large part very different from what we heard from our customers and the needs that they had. And I think that Moodle does a really good job of sort of trying to catch them all, basically, with its ability to be configured and adapted to the specific market needs.
Yeah, I think Linux has always been a good model for me. That Linux obviously powers Android and is used on phones and even very small devices like Raspberry Pis and things. And at the same time, it's the system that powers all of the big data centers and all the .coms and all the big tech is all running on Linux at very huge scale. And it's the same software, it's cool because you're only left to learn one framework and you can do all different types of work. The other thing, apart from national differences, is like Moodle's used in universities and schools and in companies and military, and they all have different approaches as well, so even in the same language. So yeah, flexibility is good, and it just enables you to make a solution faster for a particular case.
You are also talking about the learning and education, like visionary part of this. Do you think that education as a human right, powered by open tools, is that closer of being realized today compared to, or has the world drifted further away from it if you compare to when you started off this project?
Oh, well, it's different things are happening in different places. Actually, medieval times, even the invention of writing, let's say, or books, was seen as a subversive thing. You shouldn't be learning those things, everybody. This is just for certain people to learn these things. It could be quite exclusive. But I think now most countries have basic education systems, and that is good. The UN has goals as part of the Sustainable Development Goals to not just have basic education everywhere, but quality education. And that's where we still have a lot of holes. University level education is not available to everybody everywhere in the world, and it should be. You shouldn't. I mean, what kind of person are you if you say, no, I think some people should not go to university? Like, what is that? Why would you want to hold people back? So I really think everyone should have that opportunity, and it should be free. I do believe it's a basic human right to learn as much as you want about anything you want to. And if online platforms allow our institutions to reach more people, that is a good thing, I think. And that's because online learning is not necessarily optimal. We know that if you mix online learning and face-to-face learning, that's really good. The best kind of learning is one mentor, like one person teaching you full time. So you're like an apprentice, so the old apprenticeship model. That's really the most powerful form of learning. Of course, we don't really have resources for that in the world, so we have all these institutions that we build. But yeah, a large class online is still a lot better than no class at all. So I think it's really good that online learning can really help there.
We know that you spend a lot of time learning right now. And I was thinking, what does education mean to you? Not the technical aspects, we'll go into that later, but more of a human experience. What is...
I like to think of it. Yeah, that's very, very good, interesting question, actually. I think a lot about things as ecosystem. I use a lot of metaphors of the environment around me. And I really see myself and every person as a growing plant or a growing animal. We are growing, but that's... If you think about it in terms of plants, it's easier sometimes to visualize. Plants very visibly change and grow, and that's how our minds change and grow. Learning is like putting fertilizer and water on yourself, right? And so your mind can flourish. And I find that all the things we learn, so we might learn things about how to interact with other people or our family and so on. We also learn how to do very specific tasks. Maybe we work in a factory or we're building something. These are very different kind of skills, but they all happen in one place. They all happen in one very small lump of biological matter. And if you look at the research on neuroscience and so on, there are some areas that are better at things than others, but it all crisscrosses. Everything is connected. There's a lot of connections. And so from that, I can really see that the more you learn about everything, it actually helps everything. That if a lot of new knowledge is created when you're looking at very different things at the same time, and then you start seeing how they can go together and create new ideas. But even if you're a more well-rounded individual, basically, and look, this is not new. We look at the education system. That's exactly what it's designed to do. You have a curriculum of, in Europe, sometimes 16 subjects at once. I'm looking at France and things. I don't know what it's like in Sweden, but that idea of a broad education, a solid foundation, I really, really can see how you should never stop doing that. And unfortunately, a lot of education discussion has focused on training people for a job, so it's very narrow. And you have to learn to get better and better at this job and specialize. And that's to kind of shape you into a worker for an industry. And you're not growing as a human being. And I think that's where we're seeing a lot of problems today. People don't have that broad understanding of everything so that they can be an effective part of democracy. There's a lot of people with very different views because they're studying very different things. So yeah, I very much encourage everyone to think about your own learning and what else can you learn, and try something brand new, really branch out. Think of yourself as as a rounded person.
I read something very interesting in the local newspaper today, this morning, actually. It's talked about
Yeah.
because it's graduation time and it's as the schools are out for summer. But it said that Sweden is one of the OECD countries where education does not pay off as much as compared to other countries. You know, we have this social structure where you can earn quite a lot of money even though you're in a lower education kind of job. So it's like it's talking about education as like the motivation for education and learning should be to get a higher payment or a more attractive job. And you're talking also about, I think that's interesting. Learning could be so much more than just an investment for the job, like learning as growing as a human, the human experience in this.
Yeah,
I really like that aspect of learning to remind ourselves why we do this.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do some work, you want to work with interesting people. You don't want to work with clones of the same engineering type or whatever it is. You want to have fun human relationships with people and people you can have dinner parties with and interact socially as well and talk about all sorts of topics. And I just see that as like the Renaissance sort of, we should be having a Renaissance. We have all access to so much information. And as you said, these articles and government policies are usually driven by companies who want to make more money. And so, of course, they're focused on training for jobs and incentivizing people to work that way. All of this will come crashing down as we now are automating all of those jobs. And the next 10 years, we're going to see most jobs automated. So it doesn't make sense anymore to have people too specialized.
I think that's something that's very interesting, but also quite concerning, at least in my mind. I mean, if you, because we're sort of drifting now into AI and what the future of AI might look like. And if AI is, or if AI will take a large chunk of our normal everyday jobs, what does that mean for most people? In terms of, I mean, even if they get some sort of government salary or something to sustain themselves, what does that mean for the individual self-worth if they don't have a job, if they can just do whatever they want?
I am optimistic about this. I think a lot of our growth is being stopped because we spend so much time at work, working all day long, and you're tired, and maybe you have a family and other admin stuff to do, just as we all have, just to keep a house going and all of that. And you've got no time left over for much else. A lot of people, I'm sure, are still, getting in front of a TV and watching a movie or some TV because they're too tired to do much else, and that's your evening gone, and then you're back asleep again and then start again in the morning. We haven't got a lot of time to grow as individuals. Some things we could be doing are becoming a great ballroom dancer, or learning or being very good at an instrument, or writing a book, or helping in a neighborhood thing to build a community garden, or fix the environment, or get into politics, or like there's so many things we could all be doing, but we just don't have time for it. And that's because of jobs. So yeah. I think actually you could feel a lot better. You'll feel more fulfilled actually, because you'll have all these amazing connections and learning that you would have going on.
What I'm thinking of is maybe on the one hand that for at least some part of the population, going to a job every day is their main area of socialization, and because they might not have a big, or they might not have any network outside of their work, so they get a lot of validation from their coworkers. But also, I mean, there are a lot of data indicating that actually having a job is something that makes you feel well, because you get a sense of self-worth from having a job and maybe providing for a family. We know, for instance, that people who lose their jobs, or even people going into retirement, a big part of them become, or not maybe a big part, but a part of them become depressed because they lose that area of
Purpose.
yeah, exactly. They lose their purpose. And I think such a shift when we introduce AI might become quite troublesome for a lot of people.
Look, I completely understand, and I agree that activity gives you purpose. I don't think the activity needs to be tied to a salary, because you have this fear, right? You know, you have to go to work and do this thing to get paid so that I can have a house and food and all of that stuff. I'm just talking about separating those two. I'm not saying get rid of either of them. I'm saying we just got to break the connection, because if I could work, I mean, if I'm finding myself with a bit more time these days because I'm not running the Moodle company anymore, and I'm busier than ever. I'm getting involved in local community things a lot more. A lot of very interesting things are happening, and I'm really finding my purpose lately to be about helping people think about the future with AI and automation in their particular areas. And so I think we will always have that. There is something very famous, a diagram called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's like a triangle. And at the bottom, you've got the basic needs like, you know, food and shelter. And then it goes up to, more connection and community things. And then it goes eventually up to basically enlightenment. So imagine you're like a monk and you have nothing else to do but just think about your place in the universe and be philosophical and have all the time to meditate. And like if you've got nothing else to do, more people can do that. And you'll find purpose in your place in the universe through being in the universe, without the distraction of I've got to go to work, it's 9 o'clock, my boss is angry, I've got to finish a report. Watch the movie Office Space if you haven't. It's very telling about office work. But yeah, I can see a utopia here. There is a utopia. There is a very big danger, though, we're facing, which is who owns all the robots and all the AIs, and who is owning the world at this point, and that is very scary and something I think we need to all be talking about.
Speaking on that, how do you see AI's role in education? What are you most hopeful and maybe most worried about?
Yeah, so the role, AI is like a brain. And look, some people will make AI and probably give it something so close to consciousness we won't be able to tell the difference. So if you're getting a brain to do your work, in education particularly, so, we have education processes, like you have to read these things, you have to write these things. If you get AI to do that for you and you're not doing it, then your brain is not developing. You are not learning. You're getting the job done, but you're not learning. To learn is like using your muscles. If you want to get big muscles, you go to the gym and you work out. If you get a friend to go to the gym for you, it doesn't help you. And that's what a lot of people are trying to do in AI, is in education with AI, is they're getting the AI to do all the things that people should be doing to learn. So a lot of what how I think about it is we should get AI to do the boring work, the administration work, the stuff around the edges to manage all the data and give us insights. That's great. That means the learning can happen more and you have more interaction. The teacher of a course will have more time to actually talk to students and have discussions and be involved. Less time doing difficult grading or collecting information or making some information from one form into another form, all of that stuff. There's so much admin. So I think there's a good potential there. I do worry that the AI that gets the most news tends to be these very big tech companies that are driving AI right now. You've got your OpenAI, ChatGPT, you've got your Googles and Meta, American big tech companies, and they have a very particular cultural style. So this 4% of the population, which is America, just over 4% of the world's population, are very American. And so the things they make are very American and they have very American flavor. And even if they have translation to another language, it's still like an American talking Swedish or an American talking Australian. There is a cultural bias. And that's because of the reinforcement learning techniques they put into their AIs and so on. Apart from that, the other problem is they're centralized in the US. So we're all sending our data to this one place in the world. And it's like the biggest possible mass surveillance device ever created. We have some very worrying things happening in the US right now with police being sent out to quell riots, and everything Trump is doing is pretty crazy. And that's where we're sending all our data. What crazy things could happen? It's not even that hard to imagine anymore. So what I'm saying is open source, again, is the answer. We need to build open infrastructures, and your AI needs to be in your pocket and you can trust it because it's yours. And my AI is my AI, and I have it here on my machines, and I can trust it, and I can give it all my data and not be scared that it will be misused. And when we talk about education, we're now an institution is basically telling thousands of students, this is what you need to do. Are we telling them, send all your data to the US, even if you're not in the US? So I would rather see us build good, strong, open infrastructure around AI, just like everything else.
Oh. Yeah. And if it's mine and I can trust it, what is your idea for AI and education? What do you think?
So the best idea I have is the idea of a coach. A coach that is your coach, a coach that understands everything you do. It's like as a CEO of a company, I was very fortunate to experience what it's like to have a very good assistant. And I had a really great assistant. Her name was Liz. She was an Australian who lived in Spain, and I live in Australia. So we could talk. We just talked on messaging all the time. I hardly ever had a call, actually. Once a week if we tried, but we couldn't always make it happen. But we were chatting all the time. So in effect, it was like I had the best chatbot in the world. And this chatbot was reading all of my mail. She knew all my messages. She knew my context. She knew everything that was going on. And she got so good at her job after a few years that she was writing draft email replies for me, because I have a lot of contacts and things, a lot of things going on. She would write me draft emails, and by the end I'd just go, oh, that's perfect, send. Oh, that's perfect, send. And that's perfect, send, because she could write them for me. And I really feel that's the experience. I'd love everyone to have that experience. And if further than that, a coach would actually help you grow, because it would know where your deficiencies are. And you might say, look, I really want to know more about this area. You could express your innermost thoughts about where you want to go in life. And it could say, well, okay, Martin, I can help you get there. There is a course at a local university you can take. That's quite a quick way to get up to speed. I can enroll you. Shall I enroll you? It starts next month, costs this much. Or maybe there's a free thing happening in the community that I could do and join, and it helps you get involved in that. As an assistant, it would be booking things and running your calendar and helping you get where you want to go. I think that for me is the ideal use of an AI. But I mean, do you want that thing owned by Elon Musk or Sam Altman or what? Like, it's just scary, right? Having your life run by a big tech company.
What would happen if, let's say that we have this assistant that's effectively writing answers to our emails, and after a while we think that, these are so good that I don't even have to read them, proofread them anymore. And then the other person also has the same assistant, and then the AIs just start to communicate with each other. I mean, is there a risk that we let AI then make decisions about learning or anything else that we as humans really shouldn't delegate?
It's more likely to happen if those AIs are centralized AIs. Because now you got to say, if you've seen the movie Her, that was like essentially one AI. He thought it was his personal AI, but actually she was talking to thousands of people at once, right? So you get this quite scary situation of, they start having influence and they're starting able to manipulate us en masse, and we all think we're fine, but actually we're being manipulated. That's the problem with mass surveillance and mass data. But if we own our own, I feel like it's not going to do anything that I don't want. I mean, trust is, we have to trust. We have to be able to trust. I'm not saying we have to trust any AI. I'm saying we have to build AI in a way that I can trust it. And if we find out how to do that, it means it's like an extension of me. So at some point, I'm going to say, don't do that, because I don't want you to. Like, it's me. I want to be me with you. I'm not going to have it write personal emails to you and sort of have a chat in a chat group, having a random conversation about what happened on the weekend. It just doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm the one who wants to have that conversation, so I'll have that conversation, and I feel like that's fine. In the job environment, absolutely, we're going to have AIs doing the jobs and talking to other AIs, and it will get to the point that you could say, I think this product should exist in the world, make it happen. And a master AI creates a company of AIs with all of the roles and a factory and robots to make the things, and it makes orders to buy all the materials, and it creates a widget and it ships it around the world, and now you have this thing physically made. Like, all of that stuff is just work. It can all be done. Meanwhile, we should be like getting into gardening and like, but not only low-level things. I mean, let's get into astrophysics. Let's get into all the interesting things in the world, So yeah.
So speaking about open source, and you're talking about open compared to commercial and closed source. What do you think it would look like in an educational context? What role has open source in AI in the educational area?
Yeah. Well, in Moodle particular, like I think things like Moodle still have a reason to exist. There is definitely a time when you wanted to go and take a course and you want to be with other people and go through all those processes and make the brain work. And I think the things we've worked out for decades are still going to apply. It's not that much fun just talking to an AI to learn something. I mean, I've tried it. I just don't think it's going to be... I mean, for some things, sure, quick things on the fly. How do I fix my car right now? Great. Walk me through it. That's great. But if you want to learn something deeply, it's way more fun to do it with other people, and I think Moodle will exist. But like I said, we have to focus on the learning experience at the centre and just use AI to get rid of all of the friction, all of the admin, all of the other stuff, the management stuff. So we're just in there doing human stuff, and it just works. but and then I said I think there will be this personal AI that you'll have, and it has to be open. Like you can't trust it unless it's open. Openness is what gives you trust. And even on the institutional level, same thing. Openness gives you trust for the institution as well. So open AI is definitely the way to go. And luckily, there are hundreds of thousands of people working on open AI, not the company, the open source AI. And there are hundreds of thousands of models already that you can just get and download and use. A lot of them, even though they're open or they're available, are not open source. And there is a definition of open source AI. It's different to open source code because it's not just the code anymore. It's the training data is very important. What training has this thing had? What has it looked at? What has it learned from? That's very important to know. And most of the open AI models out there, you have no real knowledge about what it was trained on, and there's not that full transparency. So even there are people working on open source AI, proper open source AI, and it's good to see. Yeah.
Have you also seen any promising examples of AI being used correctly, rightly in education? Ethical learner centered that you could share?
Look, the ones I like are the boring ones. Unfortunately, the way education is, it's not as well funded as it should be. So you have these huge classes and you have to manage a lot of data. So you've asked all your students to send you an assignment, and now you're looking at 100 papers and you have to grade them. So the idea that an AI could look at it first and give you like a draft grading so that you can then go look at the paper, look at the grading and go, yeah, a bit like my example of Liz before. You go, oh, yeah, that's how I would do it, right? Or, oh, no, I don't do it that way. I disagree. I'm changing this assessment. And then the AI should learn from that. But you always should keep the teacher in the loop, the person in the loop, I think, because you want that connection to a teacher. And I'll give you a good reason why. If I say to you, look, I want you to go away and do something this week, and next Monday we're going to have a meeting and you're going to tell me about your results, how you went with this task, right? If an AI says that to you, you're like, I don't care. Monday comes, I haven't done it. There's no feeling of connection that makes you feel bad, right? It's just another machine. Who cares? It's a machine. But if it's a person telling you that task, it's very different. And so that's the kind of thing we need to keep in education, this responsibility that you feel to satisfy a real person who's in some authority at that moment. That's useful. So, yeah, back to you. You asked, your examples are quite. They're usually boring things about the tasks of education to get rid of or makes more simple. I think another good one would be to make a course more readable. So a teacher can create a course by collecting information from here and there and there and there, and maybe they're not so good at design, but it would be great to have an AI to just help make it smoother and nicer and easier to consume, you know. Sometimes it might be adjusting the reading level of the text, or it could be reformatting and adding more pictures and or taking away pictures, or whatever you need to do to make it easier to consume. And that can be something that each student decides. They might say, I might be taking your course and it's in Swedish and I'm living in Sweden, but I can't speak Swedish yet, so I'm taking a Swedish course. It would be very useful for me if it was translated into English for me and that my responses were translated back into Swedish automatically. That kind of transformation on a personal basis, that's like accessibility. Or maybe I'm not very smart and I just want to lower the reading language down to a simpler version of Swedish so I can use it there. Or You can think of a million examples of just how you could have AI to customize things for you, but it's still the same course. It's still facilitated by a real person, and it just makes life easier for everybody and better.
Yeah, I mean, AI, even in its current state, I think of it as sort of a power tool, and I do think it will stay a power tool for at least a couple of years before it becomes smart and sophisticated enough to do to change or rather to remove the number of jobs that are in society. I see it more as the introduction of like a nail gun or something similar to that in the construction industry, like 40 years ago.
That's a good one.
So it is something that will affect a lot of, or maybe all industries in the near term, but it's quite hard to imagine what will happen with AI in maybe like I don't know, 5 to 10 years. How will AI look like then? Will it have become? Will we have reached the point of singularity, and what does that mean? Will it just be a power tool at that point, or will it be something completely separate from that? And can we control it?
I hope we can control it. I mean, why are we building things we can't control? That's my same objection when people are like, oh, there's going to be a super intelligence running everything. But somebody made that. The thing is, it's hard to trust people, right? That people will build things that they shouldn't. I think most people have the right idea. But it's going to come down to micro decisions. Like if you're a business and an existing business, and you have a particular job, and you're currently paying someone $50,000 a year for whatever currency to do this job, and a service is available that will do the same job, and it will cost $10,000. Well, as a small business or a large business, you're going to look at that and you're going to go, oh, well, that's a no-brainer, right, for my bottom line and on my whole accounting. And as soon as anything becomes available that's faster or better or safer or cheaper, people are going to start making those decisions. And it's going to happen quite rapidly, because as soon as that starts becoming a possible scenario, everyone is going to start doing it. And then you're going to look around and you'll see, oh, there's only 1 out of 100 cafes in my area that have a real barista now. They're all robot baristas, right? But it's just going to suddenly happen on different industries at different levels, because products will become available and people are just going to make. And I have an example that already happened this year. My next door neighbour, he fixes cars for a living. He's has a workshop, and his friend, who has a workshop as well, he replaced his secretary with a service that costs $12,000 a year to answer the phones and take bookings. And it's an AI service that you can just buy off the shelf. And he made that decision. And I think that's going to happen a lot. It won't come down to government policy or anything. It's just going to come down to individual people making calls. Yeah. I mean, think of how many robot vacuums already are out there now, right?
Oh, yeah.
All right, but we are running out of time, so maybe one final question. So if you could speak directly to every student in the world, regardless of age and location, what would you want them to know about their own ability to learn?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely, you should be learning. Definitely. Don't be dismayed by any jobs crisis that might be coming. You as an individual are here in this planet, in this universe, only once, and you get to grow. You get to grow into be whatever you want. See, find out what you like. I did a speech for, I had an honorary doctorate once in Brussels, and it's where the home of the Smurfs, and I gave a speech about the importance of Smurfs, and how each one of the Smurfs, I think you don't call them Smurfs, but the little blue people, and they're all different characters, right? But they all work together as a village. And that's, each one of us is different. We all have different expertise, different interests, and that's great. But what is so exciting is that as humanity in general, we all work together and we can do so much. We can do so many interesting things. We can put a robot walking on Mars, and you just need to find your inner Smurf. And so that advice has never changed for thousands of years. Well, who are you? And find out who you are and then double down on that. And it doesn't matter what it is. It doesn't even matter whether it's a job or not, now or in the future. At some point, you will make it happen, I think. I feel very confident that if you find what you like to do, you really love to do, and you try and make that happen, even if you have to do other work temporarily to survive, but focus on you and what is good for you, and you'll find your place somehow in society. It does seem to work for most people, so that's the thing to do. And just always keep learning. Don't stop for your whole life. Lifelong learning is really what keeps life interesting.
Thank you so much. That's really inspiring, and I think that's something that we really want to think more about and talk more about. So we're so happy that you could join us, and wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. I loved talking with you, and I wish you well with the podcast and everything you do.
Thank you.